Hi guys, and welcome to Draw With Me. Today, Thursday, June 20th. And thanks everybody who's out there. I see that some familiar names and some new names as well. April, Dee, John, Janice, of course, Joanna, nice to see you too, Mary, and who else? Kemu in Boston, Glotzia in Brazil, Elaine in Idaho Falls, and Candace in Waxahachie, Texas, Barb, Angelisa, Helen, and Charmine, Sue, John Sutherland. Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining me today and for getting ready to draw with me. Today we're going to be doing a type of drawing that is known as continuous line contour drawing, continuous contour, continuous line. There are different names for it, but basically it's a similar kind of thing. So the way the continuous line drawings work, wait, let me just come back up and show you myself. Here I am. Sorry, I was just on the wrong camera, but Marion, Jacinta, Kathy, Gabriella, Eric, thank you all for joining me today. So what we're going to need is a sketchbook and a pen. I'm going to be using my Lamy Safari. I have some other pens standing by just in case I'm not happy with it. It's possible that actually maybe I think I'll start with a slightly thinner pen, which is I'm going to be using this Unipen here. It's a 0.3. And contour line drawing basically means that you are drawing the contours of the thing that is your subject. So you're not really concerned as much with shading and cross-hatching and tone, but you're drawing the lines that make up the edges of the object. So you're drawing basically what we would call a line drawing, a straight line drawing. That's a contour drawing. And a continuous line drawing means the line that you're making is basically continuous from the moment that you put your pen down on the paper. So think of it as almost one line that if you took the line off your drawing and you stretched it out, it would be one long piece of string that would be unbroken and you wouldn't pick your pen up off the paper. And so, you know, that is a interesting approach to drawing. It's not normally the way that we draw. Normally we draw in shorter lines, but continuous line drawing is interesting because it is it's almost a form of meditation, I think. I feel like it has a meditative aspect to it because you are traveling. You and your pen are traveling around your subject, and you are exploring together. I'm not sure the continuous line drawings are the best drawings. In other words, when you finish the drawing, is it the best kind of drawing? Is it a finished piece that is the most satisfactory? It may or may not be. It may be but the journey itself, though, is the pleasure. So I think that's something you want to consider as we're doing this, that this is an exploration that we're going to be doing together, and it's not it's less about the end result than it is about the process. So I posted a link to a picture. It's a picture that's available on Pixabay, which is a great resource, by the way, for subject matter, for photos to draw from. Because unlike just simply Googling something, if you Google something, you don't necessarily have the rights to it. You don't necessarily have the copyright to that image, even though you've done your own drawing of it. The original art belongs to somebody else, and they may not have given you permission to do a drawing from it, or certainly to do a drawing from it you then might go on to reproduce or to sell. Pixabay, and there are other resources like it, is basically a site where people have agreed to allow other people to use their art. And sometimes all they ask in return is that you acknowledge them, give them a credit. So I found a picture that I thought was quite interesting of actually a man who's homeless, it turns out. But I picked him not because he was homeless, and I picked him basically because I thought it was an interestingly complex face. It has a lot of. Let's have a look at that picture. Let me just put it up here. So there it is. You can see he's obviously a guy who's been outside a lot. And anyway, so if you look at on the YouTube link, or if you're coming from the schoolyard, you will see a link where you can go directly to that image and download it yourself if you want to. But if you want to just use this image from the screen here, I'll leave it up to cover half of it, so you can draw from it if you want to. So the way that we're going to start is we're just going to pick a point somewhere on his face, and we're going to start to drive around on that face. So I'm going to start, I think, basically on his forehead. His forehead is nice. I'm going to zoom in on this picture. I have a blow up of the picture just so that we can see it in more detail. And I'm going to start on his forehead, and I'm just going to drive across these kind of worried looking folds that he has in his forehead. And now when I get to the end, I've reached basically the edge of his forehead. I'm not lifting my pen, I'm going back, and I'm tracing back over the line of his forehead. His face is so wrinkled and just sort of complicated that it's almost like a piece of wood. I've done this exercise also with drawing a cross-section of a log, where you're drawing lines that they don't even have names, these lines, because they're just parts of the wood. And similarly, so that when I reach the end of a line, I have to decide, do I just kind of bump over the surface to a part where there isn't a line and then start my next line, or I could trace my way all the way back if I wanted to and just draw going in the opposite direction. This is also an interesting drawing to do if you want to just draw the lines in your hand. It's another thing. Just so again, it's just an abstraction almost. So yes, somebody was asking about Pixabay. Again, if you look in the notes on YouTube, or if you look in the notes on Facebook, or however it is you found your way here, in those notes I've generally put a link directly to this image. So I'm working my way back and forth across his forehead, and now I'm almost at the point of where his, in between his eyes. So this first line coming down here is actually going down his line. Then he has this remarkable divot, almost looks like his nose was broken or something like that, and that's taking me back up. And then there's a fine line that goes there. But you notice I still have not lifted my pen. Pixabay is an app, people are saying. I didn't know there was an app. I just use it as a website. But I imagine you could use it as almost like you use Sketchy if you wanted to. But just going to the website is perfectly fine too. So, okay, so now I'm coming down to where his eyebrows are. And, I could decide how much detail I want to put into. I want to actually draw every single hair of his eyebrows. I don't really feel like doing that now. I'm just going to draw generally the outline of the shape of his eyebrows, coming down here and then working my way back up. So I might go back in later on and decide that I want to draw those individual hairs. I might draw just a few of them. And now, see, I'm tracing back over my lines, making it a bit darker. It's almost, as I said, it's like driving. I'm now driving back down that same road, and now I'm coming up to, there's a little fold here by the side of his eye, and then I'm going to now draw the outline of his actual eye. And I'm going to go back up and draw in there. See, so again, there's all kinds of shading and shadows in here. I'm ignoring them. I'm just tracing around the edges of these shapes. This is a great exercise, I think, not only for just sort of warming up and meditating, but also for just thinking in terms of What are the shapes in the object that you see? You know, in the end, much of drawing, particularly when you're drawing the foundation of the actual object you're making, much of the drawing that you're doing is really just defining shapes. And a drawing is really just a collection of shapes. So now I have to go back to his eye. I've kind of been a bit inaccurate there, but and then there's some sort of reflection in there, and then I come back down to his pupil. But again, I'm not coloring any of it in. I just want to have the collection of the outlines. And you know, if I take my time, it becomes, oops, I almost got my pen off the paper there. Uh-oh. That would have been breaking the rule, this sort of silly rule that I've set myself, which is do not leave the paper under any circumstances. You know, it becomes a little bit of a puzzle, like how am I going to get to a certain place? How am I going to get to a place that doesn't seem to have any line leading up to it? Well, that's part of the fun of it, is sort of doing this like stepping stones where you decide as you go along. So, and then I'm going to go down and sort of do this divot in his cheek, and hopefully you can follow along and see where I am, and or even more hopefully you're doing this yourself and you're just listening to me and you're not actually bothering to watch what I'm doing at all. But yeah, so now I'm back up here and I have to figure out how do I get to the other side, because I don't really want to continue with his hair, so I'm just sort of tracing back across there, and I'm going to kind of come down the side of his head here, and I'm starting to work on his other eyebrow. It's a little bit hard to see over my hand, so let's work my way down. And also in here, there's this part of his eye, there's a lot of the details are lost in the shadows, so I want to be careful that I don't overdo the detail in there, because there isn't much of it. And there we go. It's a bit awkward doing it around here like that, but this is what's needed. It's a weird drawing. You know, this is like, now I know the feeling, why this feeling is so familiar. Etch-a-Sketch. Do you remember having an Etch-a-Sketch? And there was that weird experience of having to make up a drawing that was entirely one line, right? Because you could never stop. So, okay. It's working out pretty well. I suddenly had this terrible fear that I was making this side of his eye just much higher than the other, but it's within the ballpark. So now I'm coming down this bridge of his bent nose. He has an interesting face. And now the bottom of his nose. Another nice thing about this process is it does a thing that I've talked about before with you, I'm sure, which is how do we draw something without thinking too much about what it's called. Because when we think too much about what it's called, we think we know how to draw it. And then we stop observing, and instead we start using the symbols that we have kind of worked out in our minds that are the ways that we draw certain things, and that doesn't make for really drawings that are responding to what we're seeing. Those are drawings that are, oh, I know how to draw an eye, I know how to draw a nose, I know how to draw a homeless man. You know, we have these shorthands that we use, and that just doesn't make for the most satisfactory kind of drawings. So I realize I went off the page, sorry. Yeah. So now I might want to go and look at my wider shot of him again, because I'm sort of in this other terrain now. I'm drawing the hairs that stick out there, and yeah, he does have. Martha points out that he has a fascinating face. It's true. He has a lived-in face. You can tell that he's gone through quite a lot. Oh, I ran out of paper there, so I stopped for a second. So I'm going to allow myself to, rather than tracing back down there, I'm just going to allow myself to pick up the pen and come down here just to add this side of him. But I will try and stay back on the road. It's kind of like I went off road there for a second. And now I come down and draw this fold of his blanket or whatever it is that he's got on. And coming back up here. So now we could go endlessly into each one of these hairs if we wanted to, each hair in his beard. And I think I do want to add this section of his beard that is going up the side of his face. And now I'm going to trace my way back down to the other side of his nose, driving along that line a second time, and I want to just make sure that I get that side of him. And now up his cheekbone. I think this pen was the right choice. I think if I had done a thicker pen, I would have been, the lines would have blurred together more, but hard to say. It's kind of cool. It does have an Etch-a-Sketch quality to it, doesn't it? You know, I mean, I could go back in now and I could, you know, add shading and I could add color. I could do all those things, but I don't know if that's what I would want to do. I think I'm just going to continue back down this line here and see if I can get a bit of his mouth in there, because that seems to be key to his expression. A couple lines to go across it. Oboe Girl says that she listened to the first Art for All podcast. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Art for All podcast. It's one that I worked on last year. Kind of is it's a podcast that you can. It's still available, although I haven't made any new episodes for a while. This Draw With Me has kind of replaced it, but not for long. I would like to go back to it. And it was a fun process to do that. A lot of work. Podcasts are surprising amounts of work, particularly if you try and make one that has some production value. And so now, yeah, and it has. Each episode I did of that podcast, I try to create some other idea. So sometimes they were essays, and sometimes they were interviews, and sometimes they were stories, and all different kinds of things. That's what kept it interesting for me. I like podcasts. They're certainly fun to listen to while you're drawing. I used to listen to them more when I walked my dog, who alas I don't walk anymore. But yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to stop there. How are you guys doing? Sort of interesting, an interesting exercise, fun to do. And you can use this technique for drawing from, obviously from observation as well. It doesn't have to just be from photographs. In fact, if you've taken the sketchbook school class called Seeing, Brenda Swenson does an entire still life drawing and painting using this continuous line thing. She draws a bowl of fruit, I think it wasn't. No, it was like some fruit and a vase and a knife on a cutting board, and that was the first time I'd seen it being used not just as sort of an exercise like this, but as a way of creating a final piece of art. And it also allows you to really focus your eyes on the object, and you can do a blind contour drawing where basically you never lift your pen off the paper, but you also never take your eyes off the subject. So we've talked about that at other times too, where you're basically just trusting your hand to do the job of your eyes. So let's see. PC Pacrid 76 Sketches asked me, I'm using a pen. It's a Unipin 0.3 pen. And Obo Girl asked me, how do you know which lines to follow? Generally what I'm doing is I'm making different decisions. So let me go back to the drawing a second, and I'll tell you a bit about what I was thinking about. So what I'm doing in some cases is I'm here drawing obviously the contours of the wrinkles of his face. At other times I'm drawing around the edges of shadows. So those are just shapes that are defined by light and dark. So this shape here of his face, or this, I could have gone in and drawn this edge here that defined this side of his bridge of his nose. I didn't do that because it wasn't really dark enough. I think what I was doing basically is I was looking for lines that were at least of a certain value. So if they were kind of faint, I didn't do them. But I think if I'd spent more time, I would have gone back and drawn each one of these lines. I mean, you can do it with a subject like this where there's lots and lots of lines in his face. Drawing lots and lots of lines in the drawing makes sense. There may be situations where you want to moderate how intensely you draw lines, because obviously every line just adds to the texture and the feeling of it. So Alice says, I've done two so far, I don't seem to be able to do slow. I mean, that's the key, I think, is slow. Is to really, you're driving your car along the edge, and the slower you go, the more you're going to notice the little bumps and variations. If you just draw this as a straight line without really trying to pay attention, and frankly, I could have spent even more time doing this. And I think when you go around the eyes, that's where it becomes really crucial to take your time to do that. April says, how does it get finished? It's up to you. I personally, this was a fun exercise. I liked the experience of doing it, so I don't really need to make it into a final work of art, but certainly you could. Somebody else said earlier that it looked like a coloring book, and I think that could be, you could turn it into that if you wanted to. If you were to add watercolor or colored pencil to the sketch, how would you approach developing the depth of the contour line? I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but I think you could sort of do this as an abstraction. In other words, you could go in and you could make this whole shape one color, even though it isn't. You could also then draw colored shapes inside of it. You could also make this a limited color palette, so you could say, I'm just going to use 2 or 3 colors, and I'm going to keep these shapes feeling like individual shapes, because I think that's what's nice about this, is that not only the line is defining a shape, and these shapes are sort of abstracted, so you might want to focus on that and keep it that way. So Jacinta is cracked out her Lamy Safari. Yes, I didn't use my Lamy. As I said, this is a Lamy. My Lamy has a very thick nib on it, so you can see the lines would have been much thicker, and I'm glad I didn't do that, actually. And what else? So good. So Sarah finished her drawing. That was really fun. Good. Excellent. And could have put a picture up in the small window. Well, you're looking at it now, so I guess I did answer your question. there is a link below to where you could download this image if you want to. Or, of course, you could just watch the video later on and freeze it. So there you have it. So I'm getting ready to, I'm going to start packing in a little while because tomorrow we fly to Los Angeles. And then after a week there, we're going to Phoenix. And we're going to be there for a week or two. And then we come back to New York. And then I'm going to Amsterdam. And then from Amsterdam, Paris, London. And I'll be there for the rest of the month. However, I would like to do Draw With Me's on the road. So Draw With Me in different locations. So next week I will be in Los Angeles and I will endeavor, I'll be in Venice. I'm hoping that my Wi-Fi connection is good and that I can figure out something to draw there with you, and so forth. Hopefully some of you will be meeting up with me and other folks in Marina del Rey on Saturday. Is it Saturday or Sunday? Whatever. The invitation and the location is available on Facebook and in the schoolyard. And if you live in the area and you want to come and hang out, we'll probably do some drawing. We'll certainly share our sketchbooks, and we'll get to meet each other, and that's always lots of fun. So we'll be doing that. We're trying to set one up in Phoenix. Don't seem to be that many people in Phoenix who are part of our community, but hopefully we'll find some, and they'll meet up with me too. And then, of course, in Amsterdam, we are going to be at the Urban Sketchers Symposium, which is going to be really fun, and that's going to be going on for about a week. And then I'm going to go to meet up hopefully with Jean-Christophe Defline. Also, I'm going to meet up with him in France. But actually, at the Urban Sketchers Symposium, there's going to be an awful lot of our faculty there, and there's going to be a lot of people from our community that are going to be there as well. And we will be making videos, and we're having a nice party there. It's going to be really fun. So if you're in Amsterdam, and even if you're not going to be going to the actual symposium, stay tuned to our social media stuff, because we will post information about where our party is going to be. It was going to be at the studio, but now it looks like too many people are showing up for that, so we're going to have to move it elsewhere. But I think there's a good 10 or so faculty that are going to be there, and a lot of students, and also hopefully we'll get to meet some new folks. And I also wanted to point out to you, in case you missed it, that we had a fantastic video that we made with a woman from Derwent, the colored pencil manufacturer, who explained so much stuff about colored pencils that was just amazing. That's kind of it's part of our colored pencil class that we're doing right now, but you can find that on our YouTube channel. It's really worth watching. She taught me a huge amount of stuff. I mean, a really simple thing, like if your pencils break a lot, it's because you have a lousy pencil sharpener. It was one of those moments where you go, that is so simple and obvious, and yet I'd never thought of it. She also explained the composition of different colored pencils. Just so many things. She's a real technical expert and an artist as well. And Kosha did a great job in interviewing her, and you can watch that. Also, Kosha for the first time did a Draw Tip Tuesday live. She's never done it live before. She's been doing these things for like 7 or 8 years now, and I convinced her to do it live, and she finally did. And that was really great. It was a very simple thing that she talked about, which is how do you hold a pencil? And there are so many different ways of holding a pencil, and different ways that create different kinds of lines and that use in different ways. Again, something very obvious that until somebody explains it to you, you'd never realize, like, oh, maybe that's something I should take into account. So if you aren't subscribed to Draw Tip Tuesday, sign up for the list or subscribe to our channel, and you'll get them. Obviously, they come out on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, but they're really fantastic. Classes down the road, Josephine wants to know about. Well, we are going to be talking during the Urban Sketching Symposium. We're going to be focusing on urban sketching, so we're going to be talking about our urban sketching course. But also, I have been working on the iPad course that I promised, and we're almost wrapped up with production of the course. Now we have a lot of editing and special effects stuff to do. I'm really happy with how it's coming along, but there's still an awful lot of work to do, and I think that's going to come out in September. And hopefully in October, my book, How to Draw Without Talent, will be out in October and November. Our publisher was just acquired by another publisher, and the new publisher is Penguin Random House, which is amazing. I mean, I've loved Penguin books since I was a kid, so I'm just so excited to have them be our publisher. And so that book is done, ready to go to the printer, and now with the acquisition and the transformation and all that kind of stuff that goes on in the publishing industry, the book could possibly be delayed a little bit, but that will hopefully be coming out in the fall. And so lots of things afoot, and hopefully you are part of our community. I know that you're watching this on YouTube, but hopefully you've joined at least our Facebook group, or you've signed up for our zine, which is a monthly thing, or you've maybe taken our free class, which is really fun. We just remade our free class, and we put in a whole bunch of new stuff that's really cool. And so if you like free stuff, we give you a lot of it, but if you like to have classes that you'll learn something in depth, our colored pencil class is going on right now. It's fantastic. For those of you who are in the audience, I hope that you are enjoying it. And I'm seeing the first week of homework is starting to be posted. It's amazing. The Schoolyard, which is our social network, is really active right now. Lots of stuff is going on. So yeah, lots of things going on right now, new things, and also plans for the next few months. And this traveling that we're doing is not vacation. We're going to be working and making stuff as we go along, and we stay tuned for that too. So listen, thanks very much for joining me today. I'm trying to sort of distill the draw with me so they don't ramble on endlessly, but sometimes they do. And I hope that you've enjoyed doing this continuous line thing. If you have and you want to share it, I'd love to see your drawings of this photo. I'd love to see what other drawings you make. So just simply post it anywhere on social media and just put #drawwithme, and that way I'll be able to see it. Or post it on our Facebook group, or post it on our Facebook page, or post it on Instagram, or in the Schoolyard, wherever it is. There's plenty of places for us to see it. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you next week from the other side of the United States, and I will be drawing with you again. Thanks for showing up today. Bye-bye.